and include extraneous materials on H.R. 3158.
Without objections, so ordered.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank members from both parties who joined in co-sponsoring this bipartisan bill that will provide regulatory relief to our family farmers, in particular my colleague, Mr. Boswell. Thank you very much. The EPA-mandated Oil Spill Prevention, Control, and Countermeasure Program, or SPCC, requires that oil storage facilities with a capacity of 1,320 gallons make costly infrastructure modifications to reduce the possibility of oil spills. The regulations require farmers to construct a containment facility, like a dike or a basin, which must retain 110% of the fuel in that container. These mandated infrastructure improvements, along with the necessary inspection and certification by a specially licensed professional engineer, will cost many farmers tens of thousands of dollars. In some cases, compliance costs could reach higher than $60,000 for a single farmer in my district. The SPCC program dates back to 1973, shortly after the Clean Water Act was signed into law. In the last decade, it has strictly come down on agriculture, and the rules have been amended, delayed, and extended dozens of times, creating enormous confusion in the farming community. On top of that, the EPA has failed to engage in effective outreach to producers and cooperatives on SPCC application. In 2009, the EPA lifted the 2006 rule that suspended compliance requirements for small farms with oil storage of 10,000 gallons or less. The rule applies to more than just fuel. In fact, it applies to hydraulic oil, adjuvant oil, crop oil, vegetable oil, and even animal fat. It was scheduled to go into effect this past November. Last summer, I headed up an effort to send a bipartisan letter with over 100 cosigners to EPA Administrator Lisa Jackson, highlighting problems with the program and requesting a permanent fix. At the very least, I requested a delay so farmers impacted by last year's natural disasters would have more time to comply. The EPA responded only a few weeks before the November deadline and issued a statement saying they would not begin enforcement until May of 2013. While we're thankful for that delay, this action still didn't do anything to fix the burden on small farms. It just kicked the can down the road. The Fuels Act is simple. It revises the SPCC regulations to be reflective of a producer's spill risk and financial resources. The exemption level would be adjusted upward from an unworkable 1,320 gallons of storage to an amount that would protect small farms, 10,000 gallons. The proposal would also place a greater degree of responsibility on farmers and ranchers to self-certify compliance if their storage facilities exceed the exemption level. To add another layer of environmental protection, the producer must be able to demonstrate that he or she has no. Mr. Speaker, this legislation is necessary because the existing regulations are not only burdensome to small farmers, they're unenforceable. According to USDA, the current regulations would bring more than 70% of farms into the SPCC regulatory net. This is more than 1.5 million farms in the SPCC regulatory net next year alone. The University of Arkansas Division of Agriculture did a study recently concluding that the Fuels Act would exempt over 80% producers from SPCC compliance. It could save, in my home state, up to $240 million in costs. Over the entire country, it could save small farmers up to $3.36 billion. This year, the ag sector of the economy is facing a crisis. Over two-thirds of the nation is being impacted by drought, and farm revenue has dropped substantially. Food costs are projected to skyrocket for consumers. On top of that, the fate of a multi-year farm bill is still unknown, creating long-term uncertainty for the agriculture community. The last thing the government should be doing right now is imposing a regulation on producers that could cost our nation's family farmers up to $3.36 billion during the next year's planting season. There's absolutely no justification for such an expensive regulation, especially when the EPA cannot provide data or even anecdotal evidence of agricultural spills. By nature of occupation, family farmers are already careful stewards of the land and water. No one has more at stake than those who work on the ground from which they derive their livelihood. I urge adoption of H.R. 3158 and reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves the balance of his time. Gentleman from Iowa is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd give myself as much time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
Well, Mr. Crawford, I believe that you pretty well covered the detail of this, and I see the gentleman sitting beside you there, and I'm sure he's going to add to it. So I don't think I'll spend a lot of time repeating what you've said, but I want you to know that as a hands-on farmer, producer, I appreciate the effort you put into this to bring this forward, because there are just too many times we see where the farmers in your state, my state, and across the country that are burdened with these extra expenses and criteria that they don't really need, because you know, I know, and I think those of us that are familiar with the farming industry, we are stewards of the land. We don't want to ruin the land. We certainly don't want to ruin the water. So this is a good thing to come forth with this piece of legislation to put a practical sense, a practical application to the situation has been delayed and delayed and delayed. It refers to American farmers. American farmers are very much dedicated to what they represent, and again, those that, as I do, and I'm sure as you do and others, when we have fuel on the farm for whatever reason to run the tractors, the combines, or the fuel pumps, or the irrigation pumps, or whatever, we're very careful, and the cost of the fuel and the exposure of it being stolen or something is something we don't have a lot of excess sitting around these days anyway. And those that are large operators, seems to me like quite a few of them have got a tank wagon. So I appreciate what you've offered up here, and I'm very supportive of it. And with that, I would reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves the balance of his time. Gentleman from Arkansas is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, thank you, Mr. Boswell, for not only for your support, but your real-world common sense as an ag producer. I appreciate it. I would just like to yield 1 minute? 2 minutes to my esteemed colleague from Oklahoma. Thank him for his patience, and the gentleman from Oklahoma.
Gentleman from Oklahoma is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, and I may not even use all 2 minutes of that, but I do want to be able to just tell the story a little bit of an Oklahoma farm, that the things that they are up against right now are common to farms all across the Midwest. They're dealing with drought right now. They're dealing with the threat of new dust particulate rules coming down from EPA. They just fought through a battle to try to be able to have family farms be able to function with their own kids working on their family farms or their grandparents' farms or their cousin's farm down the road. Is that permissible or not? Point source pollution rules that are coming down on them. Farm truck distance rules if they want to drive 151 miles in their farm truck and the new regulations they deal with on it. All these different regulations, and then imagine the federal government contacting them and say, on top of all those rules and all those threatened rules, now you need to go find a professional engineer to check out your fuel tank. And we want to send a regulator to be able to evaluate it. And we want you to have a whole new set of rules around your tank as well. It assumes family farms and farmers don't take care of their land. Nothing could be farther from the truth. And a family farm and farms all around the country, these are individuals that they farm that land, that water is very important to them. Many of them live on well water itself, and so a spill into their groundwater is incredibly important to them for their own personal family as well. They're great stewards of the land. That's how they make their living. In addition to that, they're careful guardians of their storage tank, because that tank itself, if it spills, they lose a tremendous amount of money, and the margins on a farm are not very high. So I'd like to stand with my colleagues as well to say, let's respect the farmer and for what they're doing already on their land, and not send someone from Washington to come check out their farm and check out their tank and to be able to evaluate all those things. Let's allow some trust to the common sense folks in the country that take care of our food and take care of the land and water every single day. So with that, I'd urge my colleagues to support this, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Iowa is recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just to say this in closing, we have no other speakers. I feel like we've just defined what the need is. This will be very helpful to the nation.